listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
All right, what is going on? And welcome on board for yet another episode of the Straight to Video podcast. I truly hope you're doing good, happy and healthy, and thanks so much for listening. On today's show, I welcome my friend Percy Trayanov to the podcast to chat all about his journey from being a rock and roll fan growing up in a classical music family all the way over in Bulgaria. As a young kid in high school, he would become obsessed with the hard rock and heavy metal of the Western world, seeking out hard to find copies of huge albums, maybe getting a glance at TV shows of his heroes, and all the time wanting to be a part of it himself. To make his dreams come true, he will become part of the band Burning Sound, a young band that was in the right place at the right time and giving the music fans of his home country something they'd never seen before, leading to a bunch of exposure and even performing in sports arenas as teenagers. Eventually, Percy would find himself on US soil and begin his journey as a touring and ever-professional bass player, most recently with the likes of Dark Sky Choir and currently Madame Mayhem, who are tearing up the Billboard mainstream rock chart with their song I Am More. Percy and I got to know each other when my old record label Trash Pit released the album by Acey, Slade and The Dark Party back in 2010. This was a real big deal for me. Trash Pit had been running for a few years as kind of a vehicle for me to release albums by my own bands and also my friends, but to have Acey and The Dark Party put their trust and faith in me back then was really important, and I'm super proud of that time and the friends I've made to this day. Before you get to hear myself and Percy catching up, please grab yourself some fine rock and roll coffee from my friends Dead Skull Coffee and get yourself 15% off your order by simply adding the discount code STV on checkout over at deadskullcoffee.co.uk, and I know they'll love to hear from you guys. Alright, if you want to find out more about Percy and Madame Mayhem, then hit up madamemayhem.com, where you'll see they're about to head out all over the USA and hopefully back in the UK soon. But in the meantime, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Percy Trayanov.
What's up?
How you doing, mate?
I've been good, man. I've been in progress, just like everybody else. How about you?
Yeah, all good, mate. Are you busy with the Madame Mayhem stuff?
Yes. Well, I mean, busy. It's kind of like we're being a little bit of a spectators as far as business and stuff like this goes, because the last single that we released, it's been climbing up all sorts of charts, including it's been sitting on Billboard.
I saw that. Yeah, that's nuts.
It's like, what? So it's crazy. So yeah, we're working on some dates over here, and well, let's see where the single will go, because closed on the last week of December. The single closed on number 2 on mainstream rock, new and active.
That's insane.
I cannot make it up.
Print that off. Put that in a frame. Put that up there.
Yeah.
So I know you through your association, obviously, with a lot of New York and East Coast bands, but your journey begins in Bulgaria.
Yes, it does.
Music came along like really early when you started playing piano at 6, I believe. Was that something encouraged by your family?
Music came even a lot earlier while I was in my mama's belly, because both my parents were classical musicians, and quite frankly, there is just no other way.
Classical musicians as in a career, that's what they did?
My dad had 2 master's degrees in music. My mom had a master's degree in music as well. My dad was basically the go-to guy as far as preparation preparation goes for both for School of Music and for the Conservatory of Music for just about literally any subject, like, theory of music, harmony of music, piano performance, that type of stuff. And he was also in a very unique type of a quartet. They were doing primarily pre-classical Baroque music. They toured the world and everything. And my mom played in an orchestra as well. She toured quite a bit. She still plays in the Seattle Festival Orchestra.
How deep does your knowledge into like classical and stuff go then?
Well, I mean, I graduated with classical piano, the School of Music, and then I went to Academy of Music with bass.
Did you become a fan of it? Are you a lover of it, or it's just instilled in you? There's no escaping it.
I'm super picky when it comes to music. I guess I started gaining appreciation for classical music in general when I got a little bit older. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me that a 9-year-old will be like, oh my goodness, Stravinsky. It speaks to me. It's not happening. Come on. This is one of the things that my dad instilled in me because he was probably the best Bach performer over there. My love for Johann Sebastian. This is definitely my favorite composer, if you will. Yeah, but my musical taste varies all over.
Do you have brothers and sisters, or was it just you being bombarded with the music?
No, I don't.
What was like the dynamic growing up and stuff? Was you into other things as well?
See, that's the thing is when I was a kid, I always wanted to play sports. But it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure. You can go play football, but during the summer. It's like, Mom, that doesn't work this way. You either do it or you don't. Well, you got to play piano.
Yeah, because you're an Everton fan, aren't you? What's the deal with that?
I'm an Everton and Bayern Mayhem fan. It was funny because, when I was growing up there, I was a supporter of this particular football club named Levski, which is kind of like the Blues from Sofia, and so therefore, like every single fan of that will be like, oh yeah, Chelsea and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, screw you. What else is there blue? Everton. Cool. My God, they suck. That's okay.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Actually, no, they did not suck back then.
That's why I'm wondering, what year was it?
We're talking like about 85, 86, because 85, they won the KNK, the European, I don't know what they call it nowadays anymore, because it just like changed so many names. They won a trophy at 85. And then they won the FA Cup.
Yeah, all around that time when like Gary Lineker was playing for them.
Oh, yeah, Gary Lineker, yeah.
Peter Reid, who else was there?
Tony Cotti.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so then thereafter, I was always eyeing hockey, ice hockey, but we didn't have like much information and we didn't have many resources as far as like watching a truly competitive hockey, only whenever they televised like the Winter Olympics or the Hockey World Cup or anything like that. And you always end up seeing just national teams play. Of course, considering the times, 80s, like we're under the Soviet umbrella, if you will, the unclaimed 16th state, type of a thing. So you really can't see US hockey or you can't see a Canadian hockey, so you're stuck with, with certain portions of information. For an example, the first time I saw an American football game, I think someone had videotaped it from like Yugoslavian television or something. So I'm watching American football. I have no clue what the hell's going on with Yugoslavian, commentary in Bulgaria.
Did you watch that game over and over again? Because that's the only one you had access to.
Yeah, I watched it maybe like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, okay, so what's the deal? This guy kicks once and it's 1 point, but then he's just kicking, then it's 3 points.
I've still never figured it out.
You cross the line, you score 6 points. Man, these guys are getting hit like mules, so yeah. But anyway, so when I got here, I got to broaden my sports horizons.
So through the 80s, when did you find your own identity with certain music? Was MTV something that was popular over there during the mid-80s, or did you have other outlets?
We had other outlets. It's funny because basically ever since I was born, my dad was a huge, huge Chick Corea fan. So technically I started listening to Chick Corea ever since I was born. So yeah, here's the, 4-year-old that knows some of the Return to Forever albums, whatever, rocks your boat. Anyway, so I started digging through their collection and stuff like that. And I discovered that they had a Queen Night of the Opera from Reel to Reel. Cool. And, and they're fans, obviously. So I was listening to this back and forth and back and forth. Then my neighbor, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, was like, man, I have this band called Rainbow.
Bring it on.
All right, cool, awesome. That was basically the game changer.
Was that the first time like hearing big rock riffs?
Not big rock riffs, but like, just like kicking things to the next level. I just got in the School of Music. I was like fourth grade. Keep in mind, where you live, things are coming with a few years delay if they come over there. So one of my classmates, her parents, they were touring somewhere like overseas, and therefore they brought a Betacam VCR or something like that with whole bunch of tapes recorded, like bunch of Bond movies and bunch of other movies. And I was like, oh my God, it's the best. So I'm hanging out, I had a huge crush on this girl anyway. And one day she calls me, she's like, you gotta see this. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, one of the videotapes, it's a Kiss concert. I'm like, I'll be there I'll be there in a few minutes. It's funny because she's like ridiculous violin player. Absolutely. She released a couple of albums when she was like 15 or 16 years old in Japan and stuff like this. Yeah, she lives in Germany, right?
What did you know about Kiss at this point?
At this point, I've seen only pictures and I've seen logos, and that's about it. And I've seen, people with makeup and, and blood spitting and, and stuff like this, and just like a total freak show. I could not put two and two together. Oh, and I think somehow I heard I Was Made for Loving You. And I was like, this really doesn't match, this really
Yeah,
doesn't
that's not
match.
what I expected. Yeah.
So she pops in the videotape and I'm just like mesmerized, glued to the TV. I cannot believe what I'm watching right now. It was live at Budokan. And she's like, aren't they disgusting? I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. That was a game changer. And then right after that, she had a Motorhead concert. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm damaged for life.
Were any of your friends into it?
Not at that point. I mean, the School of Music was a bit more, although it was specialized school, it was not the average type of a school. Further on, a few years later, then we were like, oh, you like rock music too, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember one of my classmates, for some unknown reason, hooked me up with Priest Defenders of the Faith. Like right when he came out, I was like, how did you get this? And to this day, this is my favorite Priest record.
You're saying that your friend got the Judas Priest album. How accessible to rock music was it? Was stuff on general release, or did you have to pick up import albums?
Everything was like black markets, and like someone will go somewhere, bring music back, and so on and so on. I mean, later on, things got a bit more accessible and everything, but
I guess that made it more valuable to you when you did get to hear that album.
You bet. And also when my parents were touring in the Western world, the forbidden land, the forbidden fruit, they'll bring records and stuff like that.
Do you give them a list every time? I've heard of this band. I've heard of you got to find
absolutely.
it.
Like one time, I think my dad was in Italy or something like this, and I remember him bringing girls, literally the week that he came out. And like people were blown away, and stuff like. And then there was another time when he was in Germany. They like his quartet had German management, so like he was venturing in Germany quite often. And he brought me Scorpions' Worldwide Live, autographed by, I believe it was Francis or something like this, because like their management was tied up with my dad's management. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, so
I just love the image of you giving your dad a list of stuff and he's going into these record shops in all different countries saying, have you got this? Have you got this?
Yeah.
Have you got girls?
Yeah. My goodness. I don't remember which album was it. I could not get you this album. The cover was too explicit or something like this. I was like, come on, Dad.
You get pulled up by customs on the way back through.
Yeah. What is this stuff? What are you trying to do here?
Amazing. What about live music? Did you get the opportunity to see many live bands?
I saw very few of them. The ones that I saw were basically, from there. Funny enough, half of the bands that I saw were my dad's students. So yeah, I mean, I saw some random stuff here and there, and probably when I hit high school, I was like, okay, let's do something. So
was it the rock music that made you kind of gravitate towards bass?
Partially it was. On the other hand, the Chick Corea influence, he always played with phenomenal musicians, but I mean, he also played with phenomenal bass players. So when I hit high school, I was basically thinking about, okay, well, I need to sniff out some, like-minded people. And then there are like some older kids which were putting stuff together to play on basically the first ever rock performance at the School of Music. They were playing covers. I was like, okay, I'll tag along. It was a complete, utter disaster.
In hindsight, it was a disaster, or it even felt like a disaster back then?
No one had videotaped it, or like anything. It's not like one of those things where I can pop up the video and watch it and laugh about it. I don't, because I probably would cry, just like beginning steps everywhere. So after that, basically the three of us that were in it were like, okay, well, let's see what we can take this. So back then I was a singer.
I did not know that.
Yes. Then I was like, maybe I will play like rhythm guitar or something like this, because just with one guitar sounds a little empty. Sure enough, we have our full set with own songs. And it's like, okay, all right. For that time, we're going completely balls out. Fog machines, lights, stuff like this. Basically, that the word got out to like other schools, and the concert hall, which was, intended strictly for classical music, it was basically mobbed. You're looking at open doors and there's like fog spilling over people's heads.
Where did you get all the stuff from?
One of my guitar player's classmates, his cousin worked at the film center. And so he brought all sorts of like fogs, lights. I mean, we kicked that up a notch. So that went kind of comical, but we definitely left quite the impression.
And you were singing at this show?
And I was singing, yeah. I was still singing. Right after the following month, we did another concert somewhere else with another band, and that was a comical experience as well. And the third time's a charm. Like, we completely just slayed and kicked ass and blah, blah, blah. And people from like older bands are like, how old are these kids?
What was the band called?
Burning Sound.
Okay, that stayed together for quite a while, right?
Kind of like lasted for about 4 or 5 years. We definitely grabbed a lot of attention, a lot of, female followers back then. When we hit our optimal stride, if you will, I stopped singing. There was like a proper singer and stuff like that. And basically I've switched to bass since probably the show 4 or 5 at that point. So when we gained some sort of stability, and then we started singing in English.
Who was you modeling yourselves on? Who was the band like? Oh, this is who we want to look like, we want to sound like.
I mean, yeah, we basically were like, okay, so here's the deal. Do we want to cater to this crowd, or do we want to give ourselves a chance? So we went balls out. We sang in English. We were wearing ridiculous amount of makeup.
Obviously.
Well, yes. I mean, we're talking, crew around like theater of paint,
okay,
but we don't know. So we look like the halfway between clowns and, and aerobics instructors, so it's...
But I bet everybody thought you looked awesome though back then.
Oh my goodness. They didn't know what to do with us. They're like, are these girls? I was like, no, man. No.
You're going to kick your ass. We might look like girls, but we'll kick your ass.
Because I was wearing like earrings like that big. And he's like, hey, where did the parrot flew out to? It's like a parrot swing on your ear.
Where was you getting all your gear from? All your clothes?
Random stuff, like random places. Seriously. Raid your mom's wardrobe and blah, blah, blah.
This looks like something Vince Neil would wear. Nicky Six wears something kind of like that.
Yeah, there you go. So basically whatever worked.
Who were the bass players you were looking up to back then?
I mean, I still look up to him. Rudy Sarzo, awesome person, awesome bass player. It's like probably my favorite rock bass player because he plays exactly what needs to be played. He's not trying to flash all the time. Whenever he has to, he shines. Everything that he releases is solid.
You guys ever met?
Yes, a few times because he's worked with Mayhem before as well. Super nice guy. Yeah. Of course, on the technical side, Billy Sheehan.
You and Billy have met a bunch of times.
We've hung out numerous times. Yeah, he's a very funny guy.
But again, everyone says, oh, Billy Sheehan's all flash and stuff like that. Yeah, he's probably the king of flash. But if you listen to a lot of his stuff, again, it's just locked in with Pat Torpey when he used to do all that. And it's great to listen to.
That's I think the power of being a bass player and a great bass player. To me, it's not only being good at one thing. I would much rather be great at 2 things versus serviceable of 5. I had a situation where, I got asked to record a full album with like various type of music. And I was like, you seriously want me to record this? Why don't you get a different bass player that has a regard for this type of music? He will do much better job. It's not that I cannot play it. It will be a bit more real. It's like one of those things.
Did it make sense for you, like you say, after a few shows with Burning Sound, you moved on to bass, but you studied bass at some point as well. How soon after was that? Was that kind of whilst that band was in action?
It was in the very beginning stages and everything. And also, I mean, thereafter, I kind of decided to pursue it very serious and very like full on. And then I had to, then I went to the Academy of Music. And my last year in high school was, a total pain in the ass because I had to basically go from piano lesson to a bass lesson. And, I'll go to my piano lesson with a bass guitar and my fingers will be literally silver from playing. It was great because it really lit a fire up my butt because, the Academy of Music is not, oh, okay, well, you go pay your money and no, actually you have to compete for a spot. And there are only 2 bass player spots back then. So I got one of them. Yeah. And the other kid that got accepted, he just had natural technique and his fingers were like that tall. And it was just like, as far as playing, I could not catch up with them. So therefore, what happened was my teacher suggested, okay, you're going to play a bit more difficult material. You're going to blow them away with harmony of music, just music theory, which my dad basically schooled me probably 4 or 5 years prior to that. Anyway, so they accepted both of us, and I stayed there for a very short amount of time, and then I came to the States.
How far did things go with Burning Sound? What kind of venues did you play and stuff?
I mean, we played everything from, we started in clubs and stuff like this, but I had my first headlining sports arena show when I was 18. It got pretty popular because, once again, we got a lot of TV time.
Is that because you were so unique for that area?
It was just kind of like being at the right place at the right time. To a certain extent, the demand for us, was very good. We didn't get much bigger because, we didn't sing in Bulgarian. And a lot of people could not understand. However, they're like, okay, well, looks like a good product. So, watch it.
Is there much out there on the band, audio or videos? Because all I could find was like a really bad quality clip of the video. Is it Don't Stop to Give Me Emotion?
Yeah, there are a couple of other videos out there. I remember we're shooting a video for the New Year's program. They literally went balls out for us, which was great, but it was very poorly directed. Like with the resources that we had, could have done some epic stuff. They had a helicopter. We burned a grand piano. We're hanging off cliffs. We basically, it's crazy.
This is where Axl Rose stole all the ideas for November Rain from.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on in the ex-socialist country.
Are you still in touch with any of the guys from the band?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yeah. One of them lives in LA. Another one lives in Denver. The main guitar player, he's still in Sofia in Bulgaria.
So what brought you to the USA and when was that?
It was in 91. So like during my heyday, I was dating the most popular female rock performer. She was like the queen of rock over there. One day we were sitting and she's like, let's go try and get visas for the States. I was like, what are you thinking? Somehow, we got visas over here and that was it.
And where did you come to? Was it East Coast?
No. I lived in LA. Straight to LA, we got the very tail end of Sunset Strip heyday.
How was it being dropped into that? Was it anything you could imagine?
You know what? I felt right at home. I know it's maybe like, like a huge cliche and everything, but I literally felt right at home. I was like, yes, everything is multiplied by 10. Nothing seems foreign to me. Cool. All right. More long-haired guys. Cool. Awesome. That's my jive.
That must have been incredible because you'd have been at that age just to embrace it all.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world. In the long run, this is definitely not a place for me. At that time, it was great to experience it. I got to play Gazaris. I got to play Roxy. Got to play a bunch of other places that closed down. Yeah. So like about 7-8 months later, the rest of the band flew out. We existed for about another 6 months over there, and then reality hit hard.
So Burning Sound had a shot.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Wow, man. What was the first band you saw when you got to LA?
Basically, my first experience was, I think it was like in the Troubadour or something like this. I saw a bunch of, local bands. I was pretty stoked, basically see something homebrewed and coming straight out of the streets of LA and stuff like that. But the first serious show that I saw was quite the lineup. I actually ended up forging my ID and stuff like this just in order to get in. And
Was it like a 21 and over gig?
it was a 21 and over, and I was nowhere near 21. Good thing is that, the security, I don't think that they cared at that point, but the lineup was Badlands, Kick Tracy, another band called Bangalore Choir, which was Dave Reese's band, and Junkyard was the first band, and that was quite the show. It was amazing. That was the one and only time I got to see Badlands, and they just tore the hell up, man. It was so good.
And where was that at?
It was actually right on Hollywood Boulevard. It was called Florentine Gardens.
Right, I don't think I've heard of that before.
It's like one of those things where it could be like a super cool venue or like a catering hall. Yeah, it's like one of those, but it was top notch.
So you'd have been there when the whole like changing of the guard happened, like a year or so after. Was you into that? Was you cool with it? It was like, oh, this is exciting.
I was seeing this lady. She got me into Alice in Chains. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Yeah. I don't care that it's not glittery and glamoury. This is really good.
This is exciting. A lot of people have said like they'd hear it on the radio. It's like, I'm pulling the car over to listen to this, or I'm turning the car around and going back to the record store to buy it.
Right when I got there, Bad Motorfinger just exploded. I was like, my God, just listen to this guy freaking wail. I was like, okay, this is very cool. So I lasted in LA for 2 years, and then I ended up moving to Denver for 3 years. And then through a lot of weird, different storytelling circumstances, stay there for about 3 years as well. That's where I formed Scream Rough. And long story short, I ended up moving to Seattle.
You were bouncing all over the place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Seattle would always feel home. Seattle changed me in so many ways. Seattle gave me things that I don't think any other place at that point could have done in every way, in just like experiencing life, like experiencing music, like to feed off a vibe of the city back then, not now. Now everything is gone.
A shell of what it used to be.
Not even a shell, man.
Where was your headspace at? Was you looking at a career in being a touring musician back then?
I would have loved to, but my music taste has always evolved. One of the things, like back in LA, I used to work in a place called Bar One. Anyway, so a lot of celebrities hang out there. One day, the manager of the place, he's like, there is a private party if you want to pick up an extra shift. Yeah, of course, I'd love to. And it was kind of like 50 or 60 people in there. These people dressed in black, and I don't know who they are. At the end of the night, the manager is like, hey, you're a musician. There's some CDs left over. He's like, give them to your bandmates or something. Who the hell is 9 Inch Nails? And then 2 days later, I saw Wish on MTV, and I was like, what?
I was there.
See, that's the thing, is that I don't know whether this was like some sort of like a release party. It was not made clear to me. I don't know if it was like the release party for the band. It was like
just a promo night or something like that.
There were not that many people there, and I ended up with like 5 or 6 CDs in my hand. That thing itself opened a whole new can of worms, like as far as like musical taste goes, because like I got heavily into electronic music and industrial music and stuff like this, and that completely flourished, in Seattle, and just the type of people that I was hanging out with and with all my friends. And just like I started digging deeper and deeper into like exploring that world.
Because you could offer people keyboards and bass as a band member as well. Was that an advantage for you?
If I would have known the right people back then, it would have been a huge advantage. However, it was like one of those things where, yes, you have it in your back pocket, but you can't put it in use. It was not my time. That's all I got to say.
But I mean, you've worked like consistently over the past 20 years or so, dipping in and out of touring bands and stuff like that. How was it coming to New York? Was you like, this is another whole place again, whole different vibe?
Like literally, when I moved to the East Coast, I was kicking and screaming about leaving Seattle. I was like, no, man. No.
What year was that? Do you remember?
2002. Things got to a point where I had to move, for better or worse. But once again, that was a place where just like completely reshaped me, and made me rediscover myself as well. It's like New York is not for everybody. I don't need to tell you this. It's like it's a huge place. It's very competitive. It is what it is, but it's unique, and there is no other place like it. There isn't. You can see 50 movies about New York, and you will not experience it until you're in there. Long story short, at that point, once again, it was like I was hanging out with, random people. I was involved in random things. And it was actually in Connecticut where I had a friend of mine was dating, or at that point, maybe they were engaged already. Anyway, so to the old bass player for Dope. And he's like, well, let's go see my buddy Acey. He's touring with Amen. They're opening for Brides of Destruction. I was like, okay, well, cool. So in the meantime, I have like my industrial band, Scilab, up and running, almost full force. So we met, it's all fine and dandy. And then I remember after that, hearing that he's in some other band called Trash Light Vision. All right, well, this is nice and nice and aggressive and, like good stuff.
Perfect for the time that stuff was.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, totally. And then I saw him a couple more times, in New York. One day he was like, I'm thinking about doing a solo stuff. Would you be interested in doing keyboards for it? I'm like, sure. I also play bass, just so you know. I was basically kind of like getting to a point where I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I don't care that it's not good for business to be like, oh, okay, well, he's not too much of that or too much of that. I didn't care, quite frankly, and I care even less now.
I think you hit an age where it's like, nah, I don't care anymore.
Oh, no. You're like, if you don't like it, just kiss my ass and let's go.
I ain't got time for that. I say, because obviously through the Dark Party, that's where we met and stuff. Did you know Andy or anybody else in the band?
The only person that I knew was Chris. Never seen Andy, never heard of Andy or anything. I remember the first rehearsal that we did. Andy showed up and I was like, who is this guy? Is that the guitar player? And they started playing. I was like, you're absolutely my favorite guitar player ever. Because he has such unique playing, such unique tone. And he's such a cool guy. And we had coffee the last week. Then we went to see him and we just shot the stuff. And,
That's great that everyone's still in touch. How many opportunities have you had to return to Bulgaria to perform?
Performed only once, like 2018. Yeah, it was cool because it was a huge festival. It's called Hills of Rock. So we ended up playing on main stage. The main headlining act was Judas Priest. So that's like checklist.
Talk about full circle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the full circle to me was, like us doing a bunch of shows with Ace Frehley. That was the full circle. This is kind of like kicking it up, like brownie points and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you still have many friends or is there much family over there or anything?
My family is in Seattle.
They moved over as well after you come to the US.
Well, my mom moved about 6-7 years after I did.
What does she think of the music career you took?
She's been always super supportive, like ever since. So it was funny because like my dad was always giving me crap about stuff and, basically not following his footsteps. And which is for a person like him, I understand it's tough, but you have to come to the conclusion that regardless in what genre of music, I'm still, following your footsteps in some other direction. So he's always giving me crap. Like, it will get you nowhere and blah, blah, blah. And then right after that headlining show at the sports arena, I was like, okay, I get it.
Mate, it's been lovely to see you.
It's been awesome catching up.
So great to chat with Percy Trayanov of Madame Mayhem right here on the Straight to Video podcast. I look forward to seeing him when the band return to the UK, hopefully in the very near future. Such an amazing journey he's been on. I can't imagine the emotions and experiences he had when moving from his home country to be dropped right into the middle of Hollywood. And even after that, adapting to life in such places as Seattle and New York. But it's great to see him doing so well and still rocking stages all over the world. As mentioned, please check out Madame Mayhem and their new music and tour dates, which can all be found at madamemayhem.com. And if you want to check out more episodes of this show, they can all be found at stvpod.com, where you'll find music, videos, merchandise, and also how you can support the show through our Patreon page. Thanks so much to everyone that is already part of that, because it really helps me continue putting out regular episodes of this show. That is all for today's episode, though. Another new chat will be with you in just a few days, so be sure to listen every Tuesday and Friday wherever you catch your podcasts. Thanks so much for the great support, and let's chat again soon.